For centuries, it's felt like science and spirituality were on totally different teams, speaking completely different languages. One's all about facts and matter, the other is all about meaning and mystery. But what if that was never the real story? What if the strangest, most mind-blowing discoveries in modern physics aren't fighting spirituality, but are actually giving it a brand new language? That's exactly what we're going to dive into today, how the bizarre world of quantum mechanics is helping write a new kind of cosmic story.
And at the very heart of this whole thing are two completely different ways of seeing everything. On one hand, you have the classic view, right? The universe is a giant machine, a clockwork masterpiece kicked into gear by some distant creator who then just left it alone. But the picture we're getting from physics today? Oh, it's something else entirely. It's a vision of an interconnected cosmos, a single, living, breathing whole that's always in motion. And the journey from that machine to this incredible web, well, that's the big story of our time. So, to really appreciate this new vision, we have to start with the old one. We've got to understand what came before. So let's kick things off with what you might call the God of Gears. That old Newtonian model that, for hundreds of years, basically built the wall between science and the sacred.
I mean, think about it. Isaac Newton's laws were an absolute game changer. Suddenly, the universe seemed to run on perfect, predictable math. But this amazing success had a really weird side effect. If the cosmos runs so perfectly on its own, what's left for God to do? The divine got pushed out of the picture, pushed into the role of a first cause, a cosmic watchmaker who just wound everything up at the beginning and then walked away.
And the legacy of that clockwork model was this deep, fundamental split, a clean break between spirit and matter. You had a creator who was totally separate from creation. And creation itself, it was just stuff, predictable, material, and not really sacred in and of itself. In a world of gears and levers, there just wasn't any room for the idea of immanence, the idea that the divine could be present within the world itself. But then, that whole clockwork picture was just completely shattered by the quantum revolution. And one of the first people to try and build a new worldview from all those shattered pieces was the physicist and philosopher David Bohm. He looked around and saw fragmentation everywhere, and he came up with this radical, incredible vision of reality as one seamless whole. Okay, so Bohm's big idea was this. The world we see and touch, the world of separate things, you, me, the chair you're sitting on, is only the surface level. He called that the explicate order. But he said that this is just a projection, an unfolding from something much deeper, a more fundamental reality he called the implicate order. And this implicate reality? It's a flowing, undivided whole where everything is connected and everything is enfolded within everything else. Now, I know that sounds incredibly abstract, right? An enfolded reality? How are you even supposed to picture that? Well, to make this idea really click, Bohm came up with this powerful and frankly beautiful analogy that's become famous, the hologram. And here's why the hologram is such a perfect fit. If you take a holographic plate and you break off a tiny little piece of it, that little fragment doesn't just show a piece of the original picture. No way. It contains the entire image just in a lower resolution. The whole is literally packed into every single part. Bohm said the universe works just like this, and this constant dynamic dance of unfolding and unfolding, he called it the hollow movement. Reality isn't a collection of static things, it's a constant creative flow.
And this has huge spiritual implications. The old model, the clockwork model, it gave us God as a noun, a static king on a throne somewhere. Bohm's view lets us see the divine as a verb, the ceaseless hollow movement itself, the actual creative process of the universe, constantly becoming. It sounds a lot like some really old spiritual ideas, doesn't it?
Now, Bohm's vision is incredible. But here's the thing. He's not some lone voice in the wilderness. Mainstream physics, through something called quantum field theory, or QFT, also points to the same kind of holistic cosmos. And QFT is, without a doubt, the most successful scientific theory in human history. Its picture of reality is just as wild. So here's another one of those massive shifts in thinking. We used to think the world was built from tiny, separate bits, like little cosmic billiard balls. QFT just throws that idea right out the window. It says that the most fundamental thing in the universe isn't particles at all. It's these continuous, fluid-like fields that are everywhere, filling all of space and time. The best way to think about this is to imagine the entire universe is one single vast ocean. That ocean is the quantum field, and the waves that pop up and then sink back down, well, that's what we see as particles. So an electron isn't a separate thing so much as it is just a vibration, a ripple in the universal electron field. You, me,
a star billions of light years away, we're all just different patterns happening in the same underlying cosmic ocean.
This new view even changes what we mean by nothingness. It's incredible. The old idea of a vacuum was just an empty void, nothing there. But QFT shows us that what we call a vacuum is actually a plenum, a seething, bubbling sea of potential that's sometimes called the quantum foam. This means the very fabric of reality, the ground of being itself, is this source of unimaginable creative energy. Everything we see literally emerges from it.
So you take Bohm's hollow movement, and you take QFT's web of interconnected fields, and even though they're different theories, they're both pointing to the same mind-blowing conclusion. And when we put them together, we get a new kind of spiritual framework, a huge shift from thinking about a static sense of being to a dynamic process of becoming.
You can really break the whole shift down like this. The old Newtonian model, it gave us duality, spirit versus matter. The new quantum vision gives us holism, an undivided whole, and that changes everything. Our concept of God goes from a static, separate being to a dynamic, ever-present process. And maybe most importantly, our role changes from being just spectators watching the show to being active participants in this incredible creative universe.
So, what are the big takeaways here, the core transformations? Well, we go from duality to holism, this idea that the observer and the observed are actually connected. We shift from seeing a static being to a dynamic process, where the divine is the creative flow of the universe. And we turn from just looking for transcendence out there to finding immanence, the sacred woven right into the fabric of reality itself. Okay, this is all intellectually amazing, right? But it brings up the most important question of all. So what? What does any of this mean for us, for human beings, on a personal level? What are the real-world implications of this new cosmic story?
Now, before we go any further, we have to be absolutely crystal clear about something. None of this means that physics has proven God exists. That's not what science does. It's not even the right tool for that kind of question. What science has done is tear down the old mechanical metaphor for the universe that made a spiritual worldview seem kind of silly. And in its place, it's given us a new metaphor, one of wholeness, of flow, of deep connection, that's incredibly fertile ground for spiritual thinking.
I think this really sums up the new story perfectly. The vision here is of a divine that isn't separate from us at all, but is the very ground of our being, the reality from which we emerge. It means that creation isn't some finished product from the past, it's an ongoing, unfolding, creative process. And we are not just watching it happen, we are intimate, essential participants. Our awareness, our choices, they're part of how the universe is getting to know itself.
So this new story from the heart of physics leaves us with a really deep question to carry with us. If we aren't just separate cogs in some giant cosmic machine, but we are in fact inseparable waves in a single, creative, cosmic ocean, well, how does that change everything? How does that change how we see ourselves, how we see each other, and what our place is in this whole incredible thing? That's the question this new vision invites every one of us to explore.